Hello and welcome to the re-recording of advanced training Q&A that was held at the Gothenburg Botanic Garden on, let's see, we have the, that was on the, when was it, Greg? 29th of and 30th of April, sorry, yeah. And so this is Havard from IrisBG and then Greg Payton from the Dawes Arboretum.
Hello.
Yeah, and we are basically going through things because of the recording of that session didn't go well at all. It actually didn't work. So we're just going to mix and merge this with the Q&A from the conference plus the webinar that we held at the Amsterdam Botanic Garden in May that also didn't work because of issues with the internet connections. So,
and just to clarify, we did test it beforehand, and it showed there was a strong signal, but we have no idea what happened. Maybe everybody in the organization got online at the same time.
Yeah, no, it was really weird. It was the voice, the audio got completely scrambled. So, so very sorry about that. So the Q&A session, we had a number of questions that came through, and then some of them some of these questions were put to postpone to be covered in the webinar. So there will be a mix of those two in this particular recording. So this is recorded at June the 6th. So appropriately, the National Day of Sweden. So that's an interesting combination. So yeah,
there you go.
Well, while they're sitting and relaxing, drinking beer and enjoying the day, we are working hard for them. So that's good. Let's start with well, I'm just going through the list in order here. I'm just going to tell you quickly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about projects quickly. We're going to talk about tours, and then we're going to talk about a question about how we move plants around and how we track that. With the, are there any clever methods? And then we're going to talk about empty locations, and then APG4 was asked, and then how we deal with annuals, and then we're going to talk a bit about data import, and then there were some questions about item management and tasks, and then some questions about accessioning seeds, and then how people do inventory. Yeah, that's sort of the main, most of the topics, and then we will basically start where I started with projects. So if I bring up Iris here now, this is Iris 3 here, 3.64. Projects is found here, and in this database there are only 2 projects, but the history of project is that it was already in version 2 and maybe even version 1, so it has a long history, and I think that it is sort of been replaced slightly by the use of other parts of Iris. For example, tasks can be used to a certain extent to cover some of that use that projects had in the past. But what is very clearly a good use of project is to record collection trips. I think that makes a lot of sense because here you can have a bit of detail about its starts and ends and stuff like that. And
that's exactly what I use it for as well. Yeah, so like the various trips to China or trips we take to the Appalachian Mountains, places like that, we can record the trip participants, the dates that the trip occurred, and then have that code. And then it's easy to search for accessions that all relate to that trip via the project.
Exactly. So that is probably the most obvious use. And then, as you can see here, when you add a project, you can then associate it with the accession record, and even better, it's actually aligned up under the collection tab. So it sort of fits nicely there as well. So that's the most common use. Other than that, if you have any, what shall I say, other types of project in the garden, maybe you're building a greenhouse or whatever, you could, of course, use it for that kind of stuff as well. So as long as it doesn't overlap with the collection data. Or yeah. Okay, so that's that question. There was a question from the audience about how you use and record tours, or under here it's called trails, but it's the same thing. So that feature is used to record a tour that you want to typically share with their visitors online with Garden Explorer. It integrates with Garden Explorer. You may also want to record it if you want to print or plan a tour for other purposes. So it's not necessarily exclusively for people who have a Garden Explorer website. The benefit here is that the tours are they can be a mix of. I'll bring up one here, so we'll see. So here's a rhododendron walk, for example. So you can put in different things. I'm going to take the other one because I think that has a bit more. So you can have a mix of information points, plants, and assets, sculptures, etc., to guide people through that. So when you've prepared a tour, you can click here up on the map here, and then you can see where the tour will lead you. If I now bring it with an maybe a bit better contrast for this one, I can have Google Satellite instead. And then you see this tour takes you this route. Yeah. So to create a new tour, you just clear the screen, and I'm just going to do a rhododendron tour again, just because I want to. And then you can start adding things here. So if I want to add a plant, I then go in and search for, in this case, rhododendrons, because that's what I want. And then you will see that you get a list of plants. And then you have to make sure you actually send people to go and look at that plant that's still alive. That's important. And no point of picking a herbarium voucher. So I got those 5. And then I save that. And now you're sort of can have a look at it. And I want to go back to my OpenStreet Google Satellite, because that's what you see here, it's a bit crazy. So obviously you want to go that route first. And then, so this one, number 4, should be probably 4 and 5. Yeah, so let's see if we can, then I can move that down. So move 4 like that at the end. And then we get, I should have had satellites set up by standard here. Yeah, so now it's a bit of a nicer route, maybe not. You should actually have this one at the beginning, I suppose. Anyway, you get the point. And so what else you can do here, just to a few more details. If you don't write any comments here, then in the route on the website, or the tour, then the text about the actual taxon will come up in the tour. Alternatively, whatever you write here will come up. So that's sort of a thing you can consider. The same for the image. You can have a specific image that will be displayed on the tour that is different from what is displayed as the ranked. But if you don't have anything, the ranked image number 1 from the taxon will be displayed. And here you also can say that you don't want to have lines between the numbers. Sometimes these lines give you the false sort of promise that you can go straight through flower beds. So, like here, you don't want to encourage people to try to go through the building here. So you
or even across ponds or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Might be liable for damages if people get wet and stuff. Yeah. So that's why you switch that off, and you have Greg.
Just a question that I had for you. Is it possible, because I've not played with, I've done several tours, but I've not done a lot of them. But is it possible to add stops that necessarily don't show? So you could just direct somebody down a trail by putting in features that you're not necessarily sending them to.
Oh yeah, you mean so you can actually create? Well, I would just put an info point saying, and then give that info point a sort of logical name, like cross junction between the mountain road and the lake road.
Right. But you can't exclude that from showing up in the list and just basically have the path travel that route. Okay.
No. What you've done is of course, if we go to your Garden Explorer here at the Dawes Arboretum, is that you can have a base map that has some of these routes drawn in. Mm-hmm. So if we look here, if I just bring up the champion, whatever, something like that. If we zoom in here, yeah. Well, in this case, here you see there's a trail here. So if you had those trails drawn into your base map, then you'll be good anyway.
Right.
So that's one alternative. Yeah. Okay. The other thing is, of course, you can have a start and end date, and that's really nice. So you can plan it when it becomes available online and when it disappears again. So that's also a nice little feature.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you had a winter tree walk, like conifers in winter or something like that, that change colors, you could have it start like maybe in the end of the year and begin in like the early spring before they start out with the fresh growth.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think you still need to update the dates every year after it's finished. So I don't think it will understand it as if you want to have this available only in October every year kind of thing.
Right.
So it's a fixed sort of, yeah. But you probably want to check this tour anyway any year because some of the trees might be dead and whatnot. So.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Makes sense.
Okay. So that's the tour question. And now to a topic that was.
If I can add one thing to that, it's not necessarily just plant tours like you're indicating here. You know, you showed assets and things. You could have a tour of like wedding sites or various other things that aren't necessarily that are plant related. So if somebody wanting to have a wedding could be taken to the 5 different sites where weddings are held. That could be the tour in itself with photographs of actually weddings being held in that site.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. Or sculpture tour, or I think I saw somebody had. I think it was Louis Ginter who had this Lego exhibit in their garden, and they put that as a tour. Mm-hmm. So that you can visit all those Lego. Yeah.
Right.
So so there are many options.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. So the third topic that we're going to talk about is something that came up at the conference regarding movable plants, or plants in pots. Let's call it that, just to make it a bit clearer. Now, this is the case in point here is gardens who have, for example, several of these lovely cycads that are stored for winter time inside some sort of conservatory or orangery, and then in the summer they move out to specific spots in the garden, and that's when they are sort of technically available for visitors to look at. And then that thing is then moved back and forth every year. And if you want to have a specific, or use the map coordinates, where is it going? Where was it last time? Those kind of things. That can be a bit of a hassle to deal with. So is there a clever way to do that so you don't have to, so that sort of process is a bit simpler? So and this thing we're going to talk about now is proposal that I think will work quite nicely, or we think. I'm bringing you into this, Greg, if that's okay.
I think that you're right.
Yeah. So what you should do, or what you can do then, is first. So we need to prepare this a bit. The first thing we need to do is to add a new plant status. So we'll do that under definitions. So we're going to call under planting. So we're going to go and give it a status called, I'm just for the sake of it calling it in winter storage, but there could be any other. This is so that you can easily find all those plants that are in winter storage, or it could be so that they are basically considered to be not something you want to publish, etc. So I'm just going to put that in like that. The second thing we're going to do is that we're going to go and under locations. So let's say we have where we're going to put them is in the orangery. Let's just do that. So I'm going to go in management, locations. And then we're going to put in a new location here. Yeah, we'll do that. And then I'm going to say here that I'm going to do partial publish. Now, what that will do is that we're saying in the wintertime, we want people to see that we have these plants, these wonderful cycads, but they're just basically in the orangery, but we're not going to publish the coordinates, where exactly they are. So people are just corralled to or encouraged to go into the orangery to look at that specific cycad. But you will understand after we've done a few more experiments here why this is significant. Okay, so if we now go and find an accession and see how that will work in practice. Do I have a cycad, I wonder? It would be very nice if I did. I don't, but okay, we don't care.
But it could be a palm or a citrus, or of course anything that's a tender that you store inside.
Yeah, well, we don't have any of that either, but so never mind. Well, why don't we just create a cycad? Cycas revolata. I actually have one in my office, so that's good. So that was in 1985. So I'm just going to put in some details there. So that plant was planting, location. So now we're going to accession this, and this is where we put it out, where it's basically going out in the summertime. So that's going to be down by the duck pond east corner. There we go. This the word planted here is not really established. Yeah. So that was in first time we got this. Let's say we got it last year. So we go in April 2018. One plant. Okay. So I'm going to do 2018 like that.
Have to add the provenance.
Provenance, yeah. Thank you. So this is we just say it's garden. Doesn't matter. Okay, and then I'm going to put where this as a plant. Yeah, there was a post about the OpenStreetMap not working properly. Interesting. I'm going to do Google satellite map. So like this. So this is where we have the pot. This is going to stand here on that corner. Okay. So I'm saving this. I'm just going to, for the sake of it, change the actual base map here, if you don't mind. So I'm going to change it to a Google satellite map. Okay, I'm running around a bit now. Okay, so okay, now this cycas is here, and we can have another one. Let's do another one as well. Another cycad, cycas. Yeah, there we go. And he can be in another section. There we go. So we're seeing this is standing here in the summertime. Okay. And that was also April 18, 1 specimen. Now, you then, one thing you want to do maybe is to also consider introducing some way to find these plants that are movable plants. Depending on how many you have, you could use a custom attribute, or you could use accession type, potted plant or something. Or you could basically go here under material and put in the container here. That's a bit, so the key here is so that you can easily find them if you want to find them, if you want to do item management to update all these plants in one go at some point. Okay, so now we are, the weather is getting cold, it's in October, and we are in the northern hemisphere, so we want to take these plants into our orangery. So we go in here then, and then we just say we have moved it to orangery, and we did that on the 4th of October 2018. And then we put the status to in winter store. Where's that? There we go. And we save that. And the key here is that we just leave the coordinates here. What we could do also, use a subref to keep track of, but you will see where it was in history. So you see that it was in location A10 before last year. And now, because we left the coordinates, so we know where it's supposed to be, but when we publish it online, the coordinates will not be published because it's in the orangery where the publish thing is set to partial. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's really it.
Just to reiterate what he said earlier, the partial publication is nice because it lists it on the Garden Explorer that the plant exists, that you still have it. It's just not showing you on the map exactly where it is, other than just listing it as being with a group of plants in the orangery or the conservatory where you've moved it to.
Yep, exactly. So then you can retain the coordinates of where it's supposed to be. So let's do the other one as well. So if I now go and find the other one, Psychas,
Revoluta.
Yeah. And then we're going to move that as well. So we're just saying now it's in winter storage, and that was in October. And then we're going to put that also then to the orangery. There we go. So now we have that. Great. And then
Of course, it's no fun to do these one by one like that when you have maybe 100 of them. So you might want to create some sort of a task list or something else to keep them all in, so you can do them via a task list or some other way to search for them in item management to move them all in one mass action.
Yep. I don't know what we should call it, but let's do that. So we can then
search for all your psychans. There we go.
So there we go. And now, of course, you can also then from this one see where they're supposed to be at any time, even though they are at the orangery at this point or not. So that's also quite nice.
Mm-hmm. So then from that list, you can go to item management, just show them real quick item management, and then search for event equals large potted plants, and then you can search, and then both are checked, so you can then update items there on that tab. So you could change location, say it's the next spring again. You could change location back to, well, you would want to do them individually by the location they were in.
But in the winter, you can change them all back to orangery again, because
right, in one group, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have like maybe 3 main locations, you can also search or just check mark the ones that you want to move to the original location where they were previously located, and then just update them all at once.
Yeah. So let's say now we're going to go back to A17, and we're doing that inspected, inventoried, and then we are saying this was in May 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's done. And then I can go in this one and do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that expanded, and then A10 inventoried, and then May 19. If I save that now, you see we get a nice little history coming up and down as we work. Okay.
And then you publish to the Garden Explorer again, and the exact spot where the plant is located on the sidewalk will then appear again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the only question, I think this using a task is a very neat way to keep track of them. Yeah.
But you just have to ensure that you put it back in the same spot, unless you want to remap it each year.
Yeah. You could, I mean, if you don't use location ref for anything, that might be one thing you could do to put the information about what location code it's supposed to use. That's one way. So because that will come up here, so you can actually, if there are several who are in the same location area, then you can update them that way. So,
right.
Yep. Okay, great. Then, great. So there was a question about how do we deal with old locations that we want to get rid of. So several users have probably looked into the location here and look at, let's say this one, there's no plants here, we're going to get rid of that. How do I do that? So if you just delete this like this and click save, and if there are plants on this one, you get an error message, which is probably good. And then if you then go and, okay, I want to sort that out by going in and move those plants into another location, that is not sufficient because the historic entries will also refer to these old locations. So what you need to do is, the way to do it, let's say I want to get rid of this Granny's Garden 10. You need to go to item management, for example, and then you need to do a advanced search, and then you need to find all the ones that are on the location Granny's Garden. Granny's Garden 10 here. If I do that now, that's the first step. So there's one plant here. So I'm going to say that Garden 10 and 11 are going to be merged. It's going to be considered the same. So what I'll do then is I move this just to number 11. But I will then use this one, correct with no change in history. So we're basically saying this was now 10 is now also considered to be 11. So then nothing, we want to log the change. So it will just be saying, that in 2007, which is the status date, will look the same.
Right. So it's like just the correction without actually making history. So it's like it never happened.
Yeah. Okay. So now, now you think, okay, now I can get rid of that location. Well, you need to do one more thing, and that is to check in the history that there's no records referring to that location. And in this case, we were lucky. But if there were, then you would repeat the process that I did. You want to update the historic entries as well to point to, in this case, 11, if that was now considered to be the right one. So now I should be fine to delete this one. Yeah, I'm not going to bother, but you get the point. Hopefully. Okay. Yes. How are we doing for time? Good. Then the next question we have here was, how other gardens deal with annuals? And the first thing I would like to do is to point to some recordings from the conference way back when. Which one was that? In Leiden, I think. Where there was, let's see, user conference in 2019. Was that in Leiden? No, that was, here we go, this one.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember that if we go down to these two, Annelien Kool from University of Oslo and Reinhard Havard from Hortus Botanicus Amsterdam, they had a discussion about, so that's a cool video to go and look at. So this is the page, UK and European Conference, recording and slide summary. This is in Leiden, yeah, and then that recording discuss typically how people do it. The most popular method, I think, is, I might be wrong there, but one popular method is to, if you have an annual, you basically accession that as one accession, and then so you have one accession for each taxon you have of a given annual, and then you basically recycle that taxon every year. So if you get more plants, and then you dead all the plants every autumn when the season is over. So that makes it easy to see where you have planted that particular annual over the years as well. So some benefits there. Obviously, if there's more valuable, if it's more than display planting, you might want to do so differently. But that's one method to deal with it. Yeah.
And where it's actually beneficial here that you can actually save the accession without a plant source, without the contact information like Joe's nursery, because you might get the annual from different nurseries each year, so you could leave that field blank, so it's not saying that it came from that source when it's not true the following year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but if that kind of information is very important for you, then maybe following that method is not ideal for you. But at least that's one approach that I know a few gardens follow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was so the question how to do a data import, I think, is a big question. So I'm not sure we want to cover that now. But a couple of tips with data import. Number one is if you run the reports, let's say you want to import taxonomy, for example. If you run the taxon report, you will get very often the same field names for the import as you have for the report. So you can basically get to familiarize yourself with the field names that are used for the import by you running the reports. The help to see what kind of field names you use is found in the help file under data import. Just search for data import, and then you'll get this one. Data import here. You get all the field names. So it's a bit fiddly at first, but when you've done it a few times, it's much easier. I think anything you want to add, Greg, to that?
No, but you can mention the data import template that you have online. That is a good place to start, especially for gardens that are maybe just starting out and don't have any sort of current database if they just want to start collecting data. And I've recommended this to a local, it's actually a retirement village that has a large plant collection, and they wanted to be an ARBNet registered arboretum. And they went through the most basic version was to have a plant records set up and have at least, I think it was 20 plants labeled. So we made them labels. I gave them the template and helped them to to flesh out the fields properly, so that they then had a database. So, and as you've said many times at trainings, the world's most popular plant records database is Excel. So that's an easy way to start. And then, of course, it's easy to import that data into any other software package, especially IrisBG.
Yep. So you can download it here from support to download. So here you go. That template is specifically designed for accessions. So if you want to import other types of data, then that typically won't apply to you. But have a go at that, and send us questions if you're uncertain about how to proceed.
Yeah, it will bring in the taxonomy as well. So you add taxon names, and it will add those in if you import them, and locations and things like that. And there's a nice, the way the template is set up, it has a second page that does item lookups. So you can have like a list of plant names on one tab and a list of locations on the other, and then you can just pick them from drop downs. It makes it very easy.
Yep, exactly. So here's a question about, I'll read that question for the people here. When we receive seeds, I immediately register them as accessions. And that means that I don't have an item at that point. After a while, the seeds are sprouted, and a lot of them on the same date. I would like to be able to use item management to update the same information on many accessions. Basically, so how can you do this? I think the key here is when you create an item, it's probably first question, because there's no way to add items for a group of plants in one go. So what I would suggest as a better approach is I think this particular data set here actually has that set up as well. If you look at item status. So you have there is nothing called in seed store, is it? There it is. So if you have a status called in seed store, then you basically accession the seeds and end the plant and the item, and then you are in much better position to progress the way you're hoping to do.
And I do that exact same thing. And I also set the location as like cooler or various locations, warm stratification, cold stratification, something like that. So I have locations set up for where these seeds might be. But and then I do something weird, which is not unusual for me. But when seeds are in storage, I have a real tough time calling them item number 1, because you pull out the first 3 seeds that have sprouted and put them in pots, and those are then items 2, 3, and 4. So I set the seeds to be item number 99 just to get it out of the way, so it's always at the bottom of the list. So then the first 3 or 5 plants that I pull out and put in pots are then items 1 through 3 or 1 through 5. That's just the way that I think, and I just want them ordered more easily like that. But the only drawback is when you go to add new item numbers, you have to manually put in the item number to the correct number, because if you just leave it blank and save it, it'll make it item 100.
Yep. But that's it makes sense that you do it that way.
It works.
Yep. Yeah. So that was so when you have the item in there, then you can use item management. But if you don't have an item, item management is obviously not available at that point for that particular accession. Great. Okay. Let's go over to the next question. So there is how to make a task in Iris for an inventory of a section, and how to translate that into an order list. I'm not sure. I mean, it should be quite straightforward to create a task. We can do it. Let's, if you want to make sure people, so we're going to say inventory of what's the story here? Let's say, I can't remember these. I'm just going to give me a rock garden. Let's call it that, and then a list of items, and then go in here. And then we're going to see about location, planting, rock garden. Maybe that's, no, I think we'll just do one of them, just to make it.
Yeah, I think it might be easier to do an advanced search, so you could do starts with rock garden or something like that. But
yeah, okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
And then, yeah, you can say existing, so you don't have to inventory the dead plants.
Good point. I'm just doing it this way, so.
Yeah, you can sort them too. Yeah.
For example, so this could be then your list, your task that you can bring out with the app, for example, on your handheld, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was one discussion at the conference as well about how people do inventory and methods of and one approach that, especially if you go to the step like they've done it at Amsterdam, where they even have barcodes on the plant labels, then you could go around. But in general, it's considered by many, I think, a nice way to do it is to, instead of bringing a list out to look to see if you have what you think you have, just go and record what you have and then check that up against with what you should have had.
Mm-hmm.
That can be more efficient than the other way around.
Yeah, I tend to just either using the mobile application or the new Android application just to call up one of those section names like Rock Garden 50 you have right there on the app out in the field, and then you can even just view the map of all the plants that occur in that location, and then just working sequentially from one corner, try to find every plant that's on the map, while also keeping your eye open for anything that might be there that's not on the map, because you have to balance what somebody said they took out, but they didn't. The plant is still there, or if that grew back or something like that. So it's just a matter of using your observational skills to make sure that what the records and what the plants that are in those areas actually match up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking maybe I should show that in the app, but
you can, just to show you real quick, if you could just click on the map button there on the task, that's kind of what it looks like on the app. Is you'll have a section of the garden there, and it looks like many of those might not have coordinates. They might just be in beds.
Yeah.
So it's not going to show you. I mean, ours are mostly trees, and each one is individually mapped, so it'll have many dots, and they'll be ordered with where they're actually located, rather than just what bed they're in.
Yep, exactly. I'm just quickly see if we can bringing up the app here. Yeah, this is going great. Good. Come on. So this is actually with your data set, Greg. It's not super up to date, but yeah, if it's coming. Yeah, there we are. Oh, no. Sorry. So you would, what you would do, Greg, is you would go through either just do search here.
Search collection, right. And then down under the location, I would pick one of the locations. We'll say that ADG AR10, about 2/3 way down.
That one?
Yep. And then search. And then click on map. And I know where that's at in the ground, so I zoom in. and it's basically in one of these 100-foot squares. So like I might start at the very top, the north one that's out by itself, and then find that plant, and then work my way down through that bed, finding all those, get those 3 at the bottom of the bed, the one in the left corner, and then there's one plant that is a stump down there that's blue. So it's a procedure. So I would inventory the stump. It's still there. It needs to be taken out.
Okay, yeah. So that's you would just methodically go through the map, use a map as your reference to find the plants. Yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm. And then when you click on the different ones, you get the details. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Yep. So
Great.
I go into each one, I click on it, I update the inventory date, and I mark if it needs new labels. I can mark that. I can add notes, comments about if the tree needs work done or something like that, and update it, bring it all back in, and add it to the records, and everybody's happy.
Yep. Okay. I think there were a few more questions that we didn't cover, but what we'll do is we're going to cover that in the June webinar instead, which is coming up in in a very short time. So I think we'll round off now by thanking you for watching, and then the other things we'll cover in the next recording is recording other things than plants, something about index seminum, and we'll have a look at that one. Okay, thank you so much for joining, and see you soon.
Thank you.